This is the HBCU Caucus Legislative Summit.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Adrian Scott Woodard II.
I am Representative Dr. Rosalind Henderson Myers.
Tanya P. Anderson.
My name is Adrian Scott Woodard.
Dr. Chanel L. McGoy.
My name is Keith Schultz.
Representative Annie E. McDaniel.
I'm April Woodard.
My name is Derek Jackson.
I am Anicia Williams.
Sheila Eldridge.
I am Willie L. Todd Jr.
My name is Ivana Jackson.
My name is Willie Jude II.
My name is Christina Alexis.
Harold Love Jr.
Hi, I am State Representative Karen Camper, Tennessee House Minority Leader, and I'm also the founder of the Black Legislative Leaders Network.
After the HBCU Legislative Summit, we asked our leadership and our legislators one question. What's the takeaway?
My takeaway from this summit has been nothing short of amazing. When you talk about HBCUs, you're talking about me and every other HBCU grad and every other HBCU wish I could have, should have graduated. This is about legacy. It's about building, and it's about creating community between HBCUs and our state.
One of the biggest takeaways that I had is just as far as a filmmaker, the next steps, what we have to do as a community, what I have to do individually to make a great impact on my community, because that's what it's about at the end of the day.
I think the biggest takeaway that I got is that public and private and institutional, we all need to work together. This does not happen in a vacuum. And so we need each other to make this thing work and thrive for the future of HBCUs.
One of the benefits of the first panel today was to allow us to look at ways that lawmakers could help leverage their position to help the HBCUs in their district and or their state. We certainly know that HBCUs suffer from being underfunded, under-resourced, and that will cause many of them to have issues with deferred maintenance, but also issues around scholarship offerings and also program expansion. And so as we discuss, one thing that all HBCUs can do is make sure that the legislators in their state and even the ones that represent them in the General Assembly where they are have a complete understanding about the programs that they offer.
There were amazing things talked about on our panel, and one of the key takeaways for me was the ways in which HBCUs can play a role as anchors in their community. We are, as a reinvestment fund, a CDFI, interested in helping HBCUs really live into their role as key sustainers of their community. And in some cases, that means really leveraging the full breadth of their assets, which in many cases is land.
When we bring people together, when we bring legislators together, when we bring leaders in higher education in the same room, is the opportunity for us to have tough conversations about what are our priorities for our institutions, but more importantly, how do we get there?
This summit has, one, demonstrated to us that HBCUs have tremendous value across the board. Secondly, it also showed us how networking within the HBCU world is keenly important. Third, what it demonstrated to us is that there's so many resources available to HBCUs. We just have to learn how to tap into them.
For the first time, storytelling was made part of the HBCU legacy conversation. So we ask, how important is storytelling for HBCUs?
It is the most important thing that can happen now in this time and in this era. Because if we don't have young storytellers and future storytellers to tell our story, it is going to get removed. We see what they're doing in schools with removing history. So we have to be about telling our stories. And young storytellers or filmmakers have to know their history to be able to tell the story. And part of knowing your history is attending an HBCU. I attended Howard University, which is the best HBCU yet, but it's important that in order to know who you are, you've got to know where you came from.
I think film, any film that you produce, it does tell a story, and especially when we start talking about documentaries. The film that we did, Rise of the Legion, on Norfolk State University, it was interesting and surprising to us that in 50 years, a documentary had not been done. So had we not told the story, there would be no record of the things that had happened in the last 50 years. And so it's important for us to tell these stories because without them, there is no flag placed in the ground to ever acknowledge the fact that these things actually happened and existed. So it's important and imperative that we tell stories, in particular our own stories, because if we don't, someone else will tell them in a way that may put us in a false light. That's something that we all are aware of. And so we have to tell these stories in a rich way that in some ways reverse engineers the perception that people had of us. And had we not told the story, another perception would persist about our institutions and our universities.
Oh, it is essential. As I was thinking and listening to the panel, I was thinking about American Baptist College, this small college on the Cumberland River in Nashville, and how that little school has produced giants who have literally changed the world, like John Bevers, Kelly Miller Smith Sr., persons like Julius Scruggs, other persons who have been in Congress that are very well known, that many people don't know came from American Baptist College. And that story, John Lewis, for example, that story is an undertold story for those who don't really know from whence these persons have come. And so just the asset value of the story, I think, is undertold, and also, if I can use this phrase, undersold.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm super happy that they incorporated this as part of the Legislative Summit because I think storytelling, specifically filmmaking, is one of the most powerful art forms.
And I would say that one of the biggest takeaways was the importance and significance of cultural preservation. And that can be in any community, but particularly with HBCUs and our legislators coming together and preserving our culture through cinematic opportunities, through storytelling, not just griots, but actually putting that pen to paper and to film so that we have a historical collection of what our culture is about.
Why do partnerships matter, and how can they help sustain HBCU policy?
We learn that strategic partnerships are not only important and necessary, but there are organizations, there are corporations, there are just institutions ready to partner from a strategic perspective, not just short term, but long term. 10, 15 years from now, where are we going to be? What are we going to be doing? What do these partnerships look like? Everybody was excited and ready to do it. But that also means we've got to do some additional convening.
We want to create the partnerships that help sustain, uplift, and empower HBCUs as institutions for historically Black communities. HBCU partnerships with legislators create caucuses that allow for partnerships of corporations, public and private, as well as from our state budget. Because what we see is the equity or the imbalance in equity when it comes to funding for HBCUs. So those partnerships are very, very important for that reason.
Some of the challenges that HBCUs experience that we know of are very simple and easy for us to solve as business community and also CDFIs, banks, foundations, and corporations. It's an issue of capacity. So many times they are taking in very large gifts, and it's not that these schools are not capable of doing what's necessary with these funds, is that they simply don't have the bandwidth. One of the things that we can do as partners is walk alongside them with the expertise they need to actually execute against those dollars that they're receiving from magnanimous funders.
So one of the things I am very much so proud of, I am an ambassador for American Heart Association, their Empower Me accelerator. And so I'm super excited about that because there are 2 tracks. And there is one track for collegiate kids that are actually building the health innovation that we want to see today. And then the other track is for national founders that are also building inside of that space. So partnerships is critical to the work and things that we do. I also run an accelerator as well for growth stage founders, and we bring for grant institutions like the MacArthur Foundation, the Gates Foundation. We also have other family offices and venture offices as well that are investing in the future of what it is that we want to see. So we have different mechanisms to be able to change the world. And so those are the types of partnerships that I look at, but those are also the types of partnerships that HBCUs need to have.
And one of the things that came out in the summit is HBCUs do not tell their story. We have got to tell our stories and make it relevant to these partners. Make it, bring life to it. And once that happens, when the light comes on, we saw it happening in real time yesterday. So we got to do a better job of telling our stories, because once we do that, we know that these partnerships will have value. On the flip side, every company, every agency, every corporation that wants to partner with an HBCU from a strategic perspective, we also have to learn, understand, and appreciate what it is that they need. And whatever piece of that puzzle, that whatever HBCU can feel, that's what we need to work for. Because if you can, give them one little piece of the puzzle that they're missing, that's going to take them to another level, then they're going to do what they need to do for you. And that's how the partnership can grow and sustain itself over a long period of time.
What impact does legislation have on sustaining HBCUs?
One of the areas that we've been in discussions with several of our HBCUs centered around the fact that the policies that exist in terms of how federal dollars, in this case state or federal dollars, are allocated to public versus private institutions. What we found based on discussions from several of our private institutions is, in some cases, depending upon the state dollars can be allocated to private institutions. Given what's going on with the Department of Education as federal dollars are flowing through to the individual states, we want to make sure that there's a consistent policy across all the states as it pertains to how federal dollars would flow to either public or private HBCUs. And we think there should be consistency in terms of how those dollars that are coming from all taxpayers, not just those within a state, but from all taxpayers, given it's going to flow from the Department of Education, that there's a consistent policy across all states. And these bipartisan coalitions hopefully will make sure that occurs.
So if we're not strategically thinking about how legislation impacts our institution, we're doing a disservice. Young people need us and everyone to be working together to make sure that the bills and the legislation that is being written are including them, specifically HBCUs. We know that HBCUs punch above their weight. There's laws in place that are not significantly impacting HBCUs in a positive way. We will see things as we've seen in the past when some HBCUs had to close. And so we have to make sure that legislation is being written to support our HBCUs, the institutions, the students, the faculty, the staff, everyone that's working together to make sure we have a successful future.
The first thing that I would tell them is that HBCUs create a tremendous economic impact in their communities. We got to go where the dollars are. And HBCUs train professionals. They bring in economic revenue for events such as sports events, but also graduations, for conferences. You're training the workforce. And so those graduates, a lot of times choose to come back to the cities in which they graduated from and to give back to those communities. They give back monetarily, they give back with their time and their talents, but also many of them choose to make their homes in the cities where they graduated from. Oftentimes they find this nostalgia and want to relive some of those college years, or even have friends and community that has been so good to them. So they want to stay there. So it is so important for our legislators to realize that the economic impact is essential, as well as building the infrastructure within our HBCUs, the physical infrastructure of our buildings, but also the people infrastructure, the power that the people have to move things in their communities.
Partnership is so important with your legislators. One, building those relationships beyond just during the time when they're in session, making sure that there's a year-long connectivity. The other part is making sure that you understand what their needs are, because at the end of the day, they want to know, how your college or university can assist them with connecting to workforce and with industry needs. So one of the things we're doing at Talladega College is seeing how can we specifically, intentionally connect to workforce development so that we can make sure we're doing stackable credentials, additional certifications, and things of that nature. Because in my past, I have had some amazing results working with legislators. I gave a specific example of working with Representative Gilda Cobb Hunter, who is in South Carolina, and how an overwhelming majority of the partnerships that we had, public-private partnerships, came from her just saying, reaching out to industry saying, hey, I have a president who's in an area of the state that is socially and economically disenfranchised. And we want to see how you can partner to provide economic opportunity and access for those students and for that community. And so what I learned from that is it's vitally important that we connect. But I also learned because she was not a person that was actually my representative. So that taught me the importance of knowing that you don't just connect with your representatives. If your representatives aren't doing what they need to do at the level you think it needs to be done, then you need to find other ways to connect. Someone on one of the panels made the statement that that person may not put it in for you. They may not be the one to get that legislative piece of work there, but they could also be one to help keep it there. So partnerships with HBCUs, understanding the importance of working with your legislators, understanding the needs for them, because at the end of the day, they have constituents to whom they have to be responsible and accountable.
Why does legislative leadership matter to the legacy of HBCUs?
Having a legacy in place for HBCUs is very important. It's important because legislators set the budget for each of their states. And I think this will be phenomenal in ensuring that we have money in the budget for our HBCUs. As we know, programs cannot move forward unless there's funding. I just think it's really great for the legislators to be a part of the process.
HBCU plus leadership plus legacy plus legislation equals true transformation. Transformation is a word that's thrown around too often, but when you really transform, that means you've been personally transformed and the outside, the external piece has been transformed as well. HBCUs do transformational work, but if we're having the conversations, more people can understand the importance. And so it's not just we're asking for this dollar amount or we're asking for this building. It's much deeper than that. And it can only happen when our legislators work lock and step with our leaders, right? And so you have to be willing to have the conversation so we can transform opportunities, transform lives, transform those who did not have an opportunity to have an education or didn't have the means to be there, but they're here today. And if they're good enough to be in our schools, they're good enough to graduate because we need our graduates more than ever in every industry. But that can only happen when we have collective conversations, courageous conversations, but more importantly, right, be willing to go into our communities and do the work. So there's no limit to what we can do when our legislators and our higher ed leaders are focused around the legacy of HBCUs, but the future of HBCUs as well.
Well, I'm in the media. So I would say with the consolidation of ownership and ownership being less objective, let's say that it will ultimately be given some of the consolidation of ownership, that it is vitally important that there is support for entrepreneurs who are building platforms. Right now, we're in a great opportunity to build more streaming platforms that are diverse, that amplify voices and of our culture. But we need funding. We need support. And there should be governmental support, I feel, that helps to fund independent media, independent platforms, whatever that is. We need support and funding to be able to do that, to be able to have a real objective voice on the news and objective voice on what impacts people of color.
HBCUs have played such an important part in our history, in our families. Many of us have relatives who went to HBCUs, and they are the legacy, the living legacy. But also it's important that we fund HBCU in terms of infrastructure to make sure that our HBCUs will thrive forever and ever?
Well, when you think about where we are right now in this country and all of the rhetoric that you hear that's out there, we need leaders, and we have them in our HBCUs that can see beyond the rhetoric, understand the assignment we're facing right now, and to be able to move forward with that in mind. It's a lot of stuff out there. Our presidents are ready. They understand the assignment. They can listen to it, hear it, but they do not let it drive them. They stay focused on the mission. They stay focused on the plan. They stick to the strategy. And we have the right people in place right now to do it. And the ground is fertile for it. People want to come together to do this. We want to be a collective. We understand the value that each HBCU brings to the table. And these leaders are poised to say, you're the best at this. You take the lead. This school is the best at that. You take the lead. So there's this strategy that says we understand who we are. We understand what we bring to the table. We understand it's important to do it collectively. What I call operational unity, which Maulana Karenga talked to us about back in the 60s. And that's how we were able to get all the various organizations, all of their missions were different, together to move us forward during the Civil Rights era. That's what's about to happen. That is what's happening. And I'm excited for the Black Legislative Leaders Network to be a part of helping to usher this thing forward to the future.
HBCU plus leadership plus legislation plus legacy equals Black excellence.
The HBCU Legislative Leadership Summit was brought to you by T-Mobile, connecting people to what matters most. Total Wine and More, America's wine superstore. The Hunt Institute, informing and shaping education policy. Student Freedom Initiative, expanding access and economic mobility for students. Stride, empowering learners to reach their full potential. Nor Edge Advisors, advancing strategy, impact, and opportunity. Jins Policia, building the next generation of policy leaders.
The Lumina Foundation,
a stronger nation through education. Self-help,